Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tarot Today. I'm Delphine, and I'm here with.
Adrien, hello Delphine, how are you today?
I'm good. I mean, honestly, like, I need to get this coffee in me as fast as I possibly can because I'm having trouble waking up today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm having trouble waking up, but because it's extremely hot here in Vienna, and I think what time is it? 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's already like 31 degrees. And yeah, it's really hot. So if all of a sudden I disappear in the recording, it's because I've passed out, basically. So yeah, so I'm
Um,
fanning myself and I'm, trying to cool down.
yeah. I'm really sorry that it's so warm there, but also, we'll all be complaining once the winter comes again, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially here in Vienna, it gets extremely cold in the winter. We have in February, we sometimes have these nights which go down to like -10. It's crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it gets really cold. But let's stop complaining about the weather. We're not English at the end of the day.
That's very true. Neither you or I are English. Um,
When you go to England, people just tend to have these conversations about the weather, and it's
but to be honest, it is like a very interesting topic, like here to us, just because it's like it is a very weird weather system. But anyway, I'm doing it again. Okay, sorry. What are we going to talk about today, Adrian?
So I think today we should talk about how to identify. No, let's talk about what some of the cards mean in a love and sex reading, because that's always very interesting, right? And I think the way we can do this is to actually identify in the cards if they are available, unavailable, if what do the cards say if they fall in a love and sex reading. What do you think?
I think that sounds great. I think I have a lot to say on this topic. So yeah, because it's interesting. It's like, I mean, we can talk about emotional availability, unavailability, as you said, but like also just like separating like love and lust and, just the different types of attraction and what that looks like. And so yeah, let's get into it. How do you think we should do this?
I think what we should do is that we should randomly, inverted quote, because nothing is, I don't believe in randomness. We should randomly pick cards and see what these cards tell us about in the realm of love, relationship, and sex, right? And sexuality, let's say, because we have to be, be careful what we say on the podcast, so we don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah, very
be
true.
we don't want to be banned. So let's pick cards, see what they say, see what they tell us, and see maybe if we can find combination and see how this is going to take us, right? So you're going to be using, as always, a Smith-Waite Tarot. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be using a Marseille Tarot, and we'll be using slightly different, slightly different technique and see how this is going to inform the readings. Yeah, shall we?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sounds great.
Okay. So we're both shuffling our cards at the moment, which is we're getting our weapons ready.
Um,
She is picking cards. What do you have? Oh,
I have I, I have Ten of Pentacles and Justice.
okay. So, what can you say about the Ten of Pentacles and Justice? First of all, what we have here, what we need to notice is if we're talking about sexuality and relationship, well, the first thing we have to notice here is the lack of maybe wands and cups, right?
Yeah, lack of wands and cups, but also it's like, I mean, if we're talking about love and sex and the Ten of Pentacles and Justice comes out, it's just interesting, isn't it? Because I would say that there's like a very deeply established relationship that could even be heading toward marriage, right?
Ah.
Because it's like, I mean, because that is ultimate stability and commitment. And especially with justice, it feels like the right thing to do. It's like whenever I get justice in any kind of love, romance, relationship reading, like I just see, I mean, again, I just interpret it as you know, the card is saying that it's the right thing to do or the right action to take, but also that it's about like truth and accountability, because actions have consequences. So sometimes to me, this is kind of like the truth telling card. So that's sort of like how I would interpret those two. Like, I mean, they're not overtly sexy, but they are speaking to something long lasting and enduring.
Yeah.
which I think is also quite beautiful. Um, so if somebody was just asking a simple like question of just kind of like, oh, where is my relationship heading? I would be like, oh, well, it's heading toward very long-term partnership.
Yeah.
Um, this is probably like your EE phone bill that you have together. And, and like maybe this is like your marriage contract, or maybe this is like the tenancy agreement that you share, or whatever.
Yeah, and because the Ten of Pentacles talks about legacy, often talks about, things that
Exactly.
you built and things that you've, they've been established. Um, I think you probably could say that, oh, this relationship has gone beyond the fun aspect, beyond the excitement. Now you're really in the realms of like building something for the long run. That's very interesting. Yeah, yeah, cool. You see, I tend to see immediately what's missing in those cards. So it's interesting to see how you, yeah, how you put this together. Let me pick a card. Let me see what I have here. Okay, so I have the Fool, Le Mât. Let's see where he's going. Le Mât et l'Empereur. So, et le Pape. Sorry, the Pope and the Fool. So. It's like the way I would read this in a love relationship is that if the fool is walking away from le pape, the Pope, the Hierophant, it's kind of like the fool is not interested in stability. The fool, is kind of like, okay, this is getting a little too serious. I'm getting out of here. So there is no real, there is no real connection here. There is a real lack of, how can you say? There isn't a real understanding of each other at this point, right? And whichever way you put these cards, because in the Marseille deck, it's very interesting how you can uh, have cards. The first card is matters, and which one's the first and the second card. So if I put them the other way around, and I have Le Mat, the Fool, going towards Le Pape, we can even see here that the fool is trying to officialize something and he's trying to go towards something a bit more stable or something a bit more he's trying to get the attention of somebody a little bit more elevated. But the Le Pape is not really interested in seeing what the fool has to say. So this relationship is not really working. I think maybe Le Pape is telling the fool, well, maybe you need to you need to figure a few things out because before I give you the time of day and before we can even get engaged or even I can engage into with anything with you because I'm not about to make a fool of myself because you do, type
So,
of.
so, so I really love this. I really, really love this. I think that's magnificent. But it's funny because it's like, I oftentimes, whenever I see the Fool, I'm like, oh, this is the card of the single person. This is the card that is untethered to anything and anyone.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because it's like, the way that I agree, like if I had gotten the Hierophant and then the Fool, I would have kind of like worded it the same way of just kind of like, there's this idea of this commitment, but it's kind of walking away from it because absolutely it's like the cards and the succession that they show up in does matter.
Mhm.
But I think that with the other way around, like, I mean, the fool walking toward the Pope, it's like, to me, that's saying, oh, okay, like, somebody is like wanting to kind of mature or take something more seriously or like, actually build toward that commitment. And so I think they're both like genuine and good interpretations of that. But yeah, it just kind of depends, doesn't it?
It depends how you read because I think so you can read at these two cards. If you have the Fool and the Pope, right, in the Marseille deck, you can read this as either this is the one person going from the Fool attitude into the Pope's attitude. Therefore, there is a need of growth to be able to commit to something, right? And I agree
Yeah.
with what you're saying. But if these are two people, because often we can say it this way, are these two people are talking to each other? Well, they're not, because one is the fool and one is the pope. They're at two different levels, which are not able to understand each other, right? The fool has to do a certain journey to be able to reach the attitude, the level of the pope, so they could maybe find each other, And in this case, the fool would have to become a bit more like la papesse, the high priestess, to get himself at the level of the pope, right? But so you have two ways of reading this. Either this is the same person evolving from one side to the other, or this is two people not finding the common ground.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely. I think that was very well said. That was very well
So,
said.
no hanky panky there. Sorry.
No, no hanky panky. That's true. That's what we'll call it in this episode, hanky panky, because we can't get banned for that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. What do I have? Okay. Hmm. The Chariot and the Seven of Wands.
The Chariot and the Seven of Wands. Okay, okay.
I mean, this is a really interesting combination because if I was reading the Chariot and the Seven of Wands for somebody's relationship or just kind of like, where things are going, I would say that like this person is needing a lot of self-control and maybe kind of like just a lot of self-control in the relationship. Like, I mean, it just kind of feels like they have their own goals, their own ideas of where they're wanting to go, and they're really not wanting to be diverted from that track. Um, I would say that like the Chariot and the Seven of Wands, like, I mean, it really all depends on sort of like what direction we're heading in. And I think that that's another question that I would be wanting to ask if I pulled these cards. So actually, I am going to pull one more card. So what direction is the individual trying to go in? Oh, that's really interesting. The Queen of Cups.
Hmm.
So if you get the chariot going toward like, the Queen of Cups, that obviously is like, working toward emotional expression, like, wanting relationship or like wanting sort of mutuality of some kind and like really kind of fighting for it. That's how I would interpret those cards. What would you say?
Yeah, because when you said self-control, I was like, oh, that's not the first thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah.
But the first thing that came to mind was that the chariot is going forward, right? Is moving into the world, and with the Seven of Wands, there's this idea of perseverance. For me, this is like the word that comes to me, when I see the Seven of Wands. Perseverance, keep fighting. And the chariot is number seven, and the Seven of Wands is obviously number seven as well. So we have a big thing about action there. Things are moving forward, keep working at it. And then you're getting the Queen of the Cups. Then it's like keep working towards emotional understanding, emotional maturity. But then maybe the Queen of Cups is also the person that
Yeah, the
carried the
objects of
object
affection.
of affection, the objects of the you could why this is coming up as for me is telling the person, okay, you've made a decision to go for it. You have to keep working at it. So she actually connects with you.
And
Uh,
then what happens? So, and then what happens? Like I'm invested in the story now.
oh,
Okay. Ooh.
so then what happens?
The
Okay,
Five of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords.
okay. So that's not so nice.
No. So that's like a sense of like feeling abandoned or out in the cold or just kind of like feeling stuck for whatever reason because like maybe you're just not able to, get the attention of the person that you're seeking.
Yeah. So you could say that almost the chariot and the Seven of Wands would be the attitude that's happening in the relationship, right? So if you think about it, if you
Yeah, I
want a
mean,
relationship that's
go on.
flourishing and nice and going with the flow, you shouldn't have to work so hard at it, right?
Mm.
Let's face it. I mean, this is usually what, sorry, this is a bit of a joke, but it's not really. Relationships are a bit like a fart. If you have to push it, it's probably, you know, too much is gonna come out.
Oh my God, you're so funny. That is so funny. I always have this rule where it's like, if I ever date somebody, it's like, if they ever tell me that I farted, I won't speak to them. And I always tell them this at the beginning as well. It's like, I'm like, if I ever fart in my sleep, and if you ever tell me, I will not speak to you. That is a boundary. You never speak to me about that, ever. Like,
So, relationship readings they bring up all kinds of things, farting and poop.
unfortunately, farting, pooping. I mean, yeah, it's the unglamorous side of everything, right? I always
So
get so scared to poop at a man's house. Like, oh my God, it's like I will just hold it and hold it and hold it in. And then like I'll be on like the train home and I'll just be like, oh, I have to poop so bad.
So actually gonna rename this podcast is like gonna be tips to the Delphine,
um,
The chariot and the seven of wands, we could say that in a relationship is, I wouldn't call it so welcome because, it's having to make a way, push a way forward and persevere. And this is, and we saw it, it's taking you maybe to the Eight of Swords and the Five of Pentacles, which is not necessarily something that's that's giving us a very happy ending. And now Delphine just pulled the Four of Wands.
Yeah, like I mean, I just kind of like wanted to show like, just kind of like an alternative ending. So it's like, okay, like I mean, let's take away the Five of Pentacles and the Eight of Swords. And it's like, what if we had the Chariot and the Seven of Wands? And I agree that it's like maybe that level of perseverance in a relationship isn't necessarily a good omen.
Mhm.
But also at the same time, that's just kind of like what some people are like, right? Like some people are just like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, or I'm gonna pursue this person, or this is what I want. And then it's like that's just the energy that they get into. And perhaps it does end at the Four of Wands, right? So it's like, I mean, and so maybe there is kind of like a happy ending there, but agreed. Like I mean,
So the Four
some
of
people
Wands, the Four of Wands, tell us a little bit more. The Four of Wands
the
in
the
a love and sexual relationship. What would you say there?
the Four of Wands is beautiful. I love this card. The Four of Wands is like happy homecoming. It's domesticity. It's like weddings, parties. Like it's like going on a date. Like I mean, if you can think of like any event that just has that kind of special flavor, or just like that bit of like pizzazz to it. Like I mean, think of getting ready before you go out and trying to like look your best. Where are you going? That place that you're going is likely a Four of Wands sort of atmosphere. I would say it's definitely a relationship card. Yeah, one of the relationship cards at least.
Yeah,
What would you say about it?
yeah, I mean, I have a slightly different way to understand these cards, and what I see here is the four stability, stability of fire. So when fire is well balanced, it's excitement, it's stable, and therefore the fire is well balanced, well controlled, and well loved between people, and therefore the Four of Wands do talk about celebration, and celebration that almost makes other people happy about it, because the fire is contagious in a sense because it's stable, it's happy there, So yeah, in a relationship reading, the Four of Wands is very welcome. I really like it. I do like it.
It's so good. Such
Yeah,
a cute card. Whenever I see it, I'm like, oh.
it is. All right, let me pull a card. Let me pull a card. So, what if the moon met the chariot?
It's just like the day of the chariot, isn't
It's
it?
the day of the
Um,
chariot.
well, that's interesting because the first thing that the moon is meeting the chariot. That's so funny. I mean, I was just gonna say that it's like, oh, that reminds me of like, the full moon being in Cancer, only because like the chariot is the card of Cancer, but of course the moon wasn't just in Cancer, it was in Aquarius. So that actually doesn't make sense. You and I were talking about the astrological aspects of Cancer in your chart, but regardless, the moon and the chariot, I would say that there's a real lack of direction in terms of like where somebody is wanting to go. So there's almost like the moon is almost like dampening the direction or the movement of the chariot. Like there's confusion there. It's like, I mean, instead of like traveling on a straight highway, we're going through country roads. Like it's a bit through like trekking through the wilderness. I oftentimes will see the moon as the wilderness. That's also like one interpretation that I like to use. Or I would say that there's like this element of it could even be like an element of sort of like trying to work through whatever like subconscious fears one is having or working really hard to suppress them, because I do associate the chariot as like, it's all about controlling the opposing forces within so that we're able to get to a destination cleanly. And of course, like, the moon is anything but linear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because you have the control the controlling of opposing forces in the chariot that's moving forward, but in the moon you have the two dogs howling at each other or howling at the moon. So it's almost like letting the animal aspect do whatever it needs to do. Whereas in the chariot, it's the opposite. You're controlling the animal so they move forward, right? So there is a lack of common direction, absolutely, in the two cards. Now, this is if you put the two cards together. But if you were looking at one card being one person, so one person is the chariot and the other one is the moon, then you'd have somebody that has a real sense of drive, and the other one that's kind of like they don't really know where they're going, and they're more maybe about going with the cycle of things and following what, what they're feeling and maybe going with the flow. Was, the chariot's like, no, no, we got to go in this direction. So is the moon going to let themselves drive, or are they going to let themselves be guided by the chariot? That is another question. I mean, the way we are looking at the cards right now, the moon is looking away from the chariot. She's just like, I don't really want anything from your drive. This is a little bit too much. Like you,
This is too fast.
this is too fast. Oh my God. Like, slow down. Like, we've only been on 3 dates, and you already want to marry me. Oh my God. Like, take off your armor and let me see what's underneath it before we can move forward, type of thing, right? Because otherwise, I don't want to be more involved, right? Let me go into my country house, and then you see, we have a little house there at the back. Let me go in my country house and leave me alone. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you kind of just set it out, right? Because it's like I think with this combination, I would really struggle with like understanding what's happening. It's like only because like does the moon come first and then the chariot? Because if we're reading that as a sequence, then of course we move from confusion into direction.
Yeah.
But then, but then like I really like thinking of one card as one person and one card as the other person. And so I mean I just absolutely agree with you. But yeah, like I mean with those two cards, like I mean you do kind of have to ask those questions or at least know what you're pulling for before you pull the cards that you're able to interpret those correctly. Because these two, it really all depends on sort of how they're interacting with each other, right?
Exactly, which takes us back to the previous episode that we did on one of the previous episodes that we did on spreads, right? You have to
Yeah.
know the spreads that you're using. Are you using one card to represent the feelings of one and the other card to represent the feelings of the other one? Therefore, you can see how these two talk to each other. Or if you're putting two cards for a combination to see what's happening, it's slightly different. And if you're putting two cards to see an evolution of a situation, that's another way of reading the cards as well. And you have to know exactly which technique you are using before you're pulling the cards. That's very important. That we go
Yeah.
into this idea of spread, no spread, what am I doing? What is the convention I'm using on this spot, right? Because here we can see that if you're going from the chariot to the moon, it could be like, what did you say? A drive which is losing focus. Or
Hmm.
it's going from the moon to the chariot. You could say, oh, it's, something which is kind of going with the flow is finally taking a direction forward. Uh,
Hmm.
so this could be two, it could mean two very different things. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here I would say, we might have had some hanky-panky because the moon, it's in the dark, it's animalistic. But the chariot is obviously he's carrying a wand, he's carrying a scepter. So we could think, you also think that this is a masculine and feminine. Now, this is not gendered, and this is more about who's maybe active and passive, right? So we could have an active action and a passive action. Therefore, one goes into the other. Let's just um, yeah, be blunt. But on an emotional level, something doesn't really quite work here, right? They're not in agreement, right? So the moon is now looking away. She's not really into it, right? So I think sexually, yeah, something definitely could have happened, but emotionally, it's not a match, I would say.
That's so interesting that you're interpreting those two sexually as something could have happened. Because whenever I see the moon in the chariot, I would almost say, like, because the moon is just so like wet and kind of like elusive and undefined to me. And it's like, and although I understand the instinctual aspect that you're talking about, I never usually read the moon as sex because it's like the moon to me is just very, um, I mean, it's always kind of like that unsettled feeling as far as I'm concerned. So, but I completely see where you're coming from. So I just think that's like an interesting interpretation of it. Like maybe if I saw the moon with like other cards that would like support a lot of movement, but I guess also just because I usually read the chariot as being very controlled,
Hmm.
I would actually read it. So if somebody was asking me a question about sex, like in terms of, oh, has any sexual activity occurred? And I got the chariot and the moon, I would say no.
Well, I can see the chariot as going in the central path of the moon.
Yeah, no, and I completely get that,
Yeah.
but I just think that's really interesting. I think that's really, really interesting. Um, hmm.
If you look at also if you look at the Thoth Tarot, if any of you out there have a Thoth deck, you have the two towers, and you have the menstrual blood that's dropping in the Thoth Tarot, in the Moon card, and you could almost see that the two towers could be the thighs, the in between the legs of a woman shape, right? You could even imagine this. So the chariot being such a masculine energy, it's a number seven. It's moving forward. It's an odd number, so therefore it's active. It's moving towards the moon, right? The moon, which is 18, which is eight on the next level. There is the seven goes into the eight. So for me, there is something that's happening there. There's definitely something that's happening. Um, but they're not on the same level emotionally. That's for sure.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
what I would call a perfect couple,
No,
but I could see a sexual interaction there.
yeah, that's really interesting. And this is just like also a point where we should just kind of go back to the idea that it's like the associations that we personally have to our cards inform sort of how we, of course, will interpret them once they actually come out. So, if somebody was asking me about whether or not somebody has been sexually active, I would pull probably a different set of cards to Adrian, and we would likely arrive at the same answer if
Yeah.
we were actually tuning into that question, right? So I think that's also just an important thing to note there. But but in talking about sexual activity, this is really interesting, right? Because it's an interesting thing to read. So actually, maybe I'll pull two more cards and let's see whether or not these two cards are indicating sexual activity or inactivity. Okay, so let me see two cards. Oh, I have the Nine of Wands and the Devil.
Ah, okay. So it would be interesting to see how you interpret this.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say that this is about trying to keep one's lust at bay. That's usually how I would read that. Like, I mean, because the Nine of Wands is like a very individual card as far as I'm concerned. Like, nines are all about the self. And the Nine of Wands is, of course, like a little bit hyper vigilant, a little bit like, their back is up. They're trying to protect themselves. They're on guard. Like, they're kind of like on the last legs of the battle. And then the Devil is about like that animalistic instinct. But I think with the Devil, something that's always interesting to note is like, obviously, in modern interpretations, like everybody loves to just think about the Devil as meaning sex, right? I mean, I guess if we're asking a question directly about sex, it is about like that animalistic urge and instinct. But to me, this wouldn't be enough to actually point toward anything having happened, only because of the defensive posturing toward the devil that's happening here. This is where I would read like postural or directional cues. So I would actually pull another card. I pull a lot of cards when I'm trying to figure things out because right now this is just giving me this energy of again, just sort of like guardedness toward this feeling that's arising.
The
So
guardedness, before you pull another card, there's something about this guardedness because I think I want to go a little bit further. Sorry to interrupt you here.
no, you're fine.
Nine of Wands, yes, there is the guardedness, but in the Nine of Wands is also he's wounded at the mind, at the head, right? So there is this idea of repeating patterns in the Nine of Wands, right? I kind of see it this way. So he's guarded and careful about the attraction of the devil because it seems like he's done this many times before,
Yeah, yeah. So like
right?
maybe somebody, yeah. So exactly, and I'm glad that you pushed further into that because like that is also how I'd interpret that. It's like basically that somebody is like really trying to keep a pattern at bay that they have like they've been around the block multiple times and they're maybe trying to do things a little bit differently. Hence the like observation.
Yeah, but they're still looking at it. They're like, "Oh, I need to do this differently, but damn, this is tempting." Like I
Yes,
want to
yeah, yeah,
jump.
yeah, yeah, like yeah, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. This is tempting. But let's see if any action actually happened.
Okay.
Ooh. I would say so with strength, I would say no, because that supports the narrative of self-control. It's about taming the beast, right? I mean, the devil is the beast, and then strength is literally taming the beast or
Okay.
understanding the beast,
Yeah.
especially so with this card combination.
I'm
So
loving what you've just pulled here. It also it kind of made my heart open, right? It's the
yeah,
understanding because this is the integration of the shadow self. People
yeah,
talk about, it's very in fashion to talk about shadow work and the shadow self and so on. So this is an example of, a chap, the Nine of Wands, looking at the devil and having the temptation to go there once more, but he's really trying to do things differently this time, to learn from his mistake, right? And then the card that Delphine pulled on top of this is the strength card. You know, the devil has become the lion, the woman in the white dress is taming the lion and has managed to actually integrate the beast. And so, even though she's ridden or was ridden by the devil a number of times, she's getting to the point where she understands how to actually integrate this little demon, this little beast within oneself, to be able to move forward and gain. I don't want to say self-control because self-control, you know, sounds a little bit difficult, but to understand how to integrate these urges and this sexuality within the self, right? Because
Yeah.
we don't suppress, we don't, you know, this is not the way to do it, but to
Strength strength is always the card that reminds me, or the little phrase that I like to think of whenever strength shows up is we are not our first thought, we are a second. So,
oh, I
like while
love this.
yeah, so so while I'm driving and I'm like, oh, I want to hit this person, and I'm like, no, calm down. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I I do that very rarely now because my license is expired. But
So it's really about you know what it's not what happens to us or what we first do is how we react to things that defines us, right? And this is what
yeah,
the
and
strength
so
card can teach us, you know?
exactly. So strength is about responding. The devil is about reacting. So
Ah, interesting. Can you repeat this for our listeners?
So basically, I always like to think that, like, whenever something comes up, I don't want to react to it. I want to respond. Reaction, that's the energy of the devil, right? It's just something that rises up within us and we do it. It's like coming from some subconscious urge or whatever, right? And then with strength, it's like, I mean, we are responding. We are choosing how to act. We have agency.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we can really see this in the cards, the way in the devil, we have the devil that's chaining, chained up two little humans. And in the strength card, we have the woman who's tamed the beast. The beast is lower than the woman. And in the devil's card, the humans are lower than the devil himself, right?
Yeah.
So this is where is the human aspect being placed, above or below, right? So of the desires. And I think this is a technique I use a lot. Who's above what? Who's in control? Who's being controlled? And in your cards, ladies and gentlemen, try to see if you who's in control of the situation, who's above, who's on top, who's to the side. Is this a leveled relationship? Are people on the same level? I mean, we've seen in the examples that I've pulled out, you know, the le ma and le pape, the fool and the pope and the hierophant are not on the same energetical level. You know, the chariot and the moon are not on the same level. You know, the moon might have been using the chariot for pleasure, but she's thinking, I'm much higher up than that. You know, he's not made to be a proper partner. You know, so think about these sort of energetical inequalities or equalities that you might find in your cards, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, totally. Energetic inequalities, I really like that because that is kind of what we're looking for. It's like we're looking to see how to, I mean, I guess, yeah, how two cards are interacting, right? I mean, we've already said it multiple times, but yeah, it's about the relationships that they're sort of presenting, and reading them in context.
Good, fantastic. Well, I think we've already looked at quite a few examples. We're gonna leave it here for today, I think. We might have a second episode on relationship and sexuality in the future. If you guys like that, let us know if you enjoyed it. And also, we do welcome suggestions for future topics that you might want to hear about. Um, and this is, you know, This is all about having a conversation. Delphine and I are having conversations, and it's about having conversations with you guys, the guys that, you know, the listeners. And yeah, so you can reach out to Delphine or to myself. You know, you can find us on Instagram. You can find us. Our websites are usually mentioned at the bottom of each episodes. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And we hope you enjoyed this episode and have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.